The boy was only 14 years old when they decided he needed to die. On a cold night in 1858, two overseers dragged him deep into the woods behind a Georgia plantation. They dug a hole in the earth, forced the boy inside, and buried him alive. The masters believed their secret had finally been silenced. But 3 nights later, someone was walking across the plantation yard, covered in dirt, breathing slowly, and when the lantern light revealed his face, the slaves realized something impossible. The boy they buried was back. The boy who knew too much. In the year 1858, the Caldwell plantation stood quietly among miles of pine forest in southern Georgia. From a distance, it looked peaceful. Large white house, fields of cotton and stretching to the horizon, tall oak trees swaying in the warm wind. But anyone who lived there knew the truth. The plantation was ruled by fear. The way their expressions changed. And sometimes, Samuel would quietly say things that had not happened yet. One evening, while slaves worked late in the cotton field, Samuel suddenly stopped picking. He looked toward the distant sky. "There will be lightning tonight," he said softly. The other slaves laughed. The sky was perfectly clear. But hours later, a violent storm rolled across the plantation. Thunder shook the cabins. Lightning split the sky. After that night, people began listening more carefully to Samuel, because his predictions kept coming true. He warned when a horse would collapse. He predicted when patrol riders would arrive early. Once he even told an elderly slave woman to stay inside her cabin. That same afternoon, a tree branch fell exactly where she normally sat. It was small things, but they happened again and again. Soon whispers spread through the slave quarters. Some believed Samuel had a gift. Others believed something darker followed him. And eventually, those whispers reached the main house. The plantation's dark secret, Edward Caldwell, did not tolerate mysteries. When he heard the rumors about Samuel, he laughed at first. "A boy who predicts storms?" he scoffed. But then something happened that caught his attention. One of Caldwell's overseers fell violently ill. The man had been perfectly healthy that morning, but by nightfall he was coughing blood. The plantation doctor could not explain it. Yet several slaves quietly told each other something disturbing. Samuel had mentioned the overseer earlier that day. "He won't be here tomorrow," the boy had said. By the next morning, the overseer was dead. Now Caldwell was no longer amused. He ordered Samuel brought to the main house. The boy walked calmly through the front door. He showed no fear. Caldwell studied him carefully. "You've been telling people strange things," the master said slowly. Samuel said nothing. Caldwell leaned forward. The room became silent. Even the overseers standing nearby felt uneasy. Samuel looked directly into Caldwell's eyes. Then he spoke quietly. "In 3 nights, you will not sleep in this house." The overseers exchanged nervous glances. Caldwell's face darkened. "Are you threatening me, boy?" Samuel shook his head slowly. But the damage was done. Caldwell believed the boy had become dangerous, and dangerous things had to be removed. Continuing the 1-hour YouTube script. The night they buried the boy alive. The order came late that evening. Caldwell did not shout it. He did not threaten anyone. He simply spoke quietly to 2 of his most trusted overseers. "Take the boy into the woods," he said, "and make sure he never returns." The 2 men understood immediately. "Tell me something about my future." They had carried out similar orders before. On plantations like Caldwell's, people sometimes disappeared. Slaves who asked too many questions. Workers who attempted escape. Anyone who threatened the master's authority. But this time felt different. because Samuel was just a boy. Still, orders were orders. Near midnight, the overseers walked toward the slave cabins with a lantern. Most of the plantation was asleep. Crickets filled the humid air. The men opened Samuel's cabin door. "Boy," one of them said. Samuel was already awake, sitting quietly on the edge of the wooden bed, almost as if he had been waiting. "Come with us." The boy stood up without protest. Outside, the night felt heavy and still. The men led Samuel past the cabin, past the fields, and into the dark forest behind the plantation. The deeper they walked, the quieter the world became. Only the crunch of leaves beneath their boots could be heard. Finally, they stopped in a small clearing. One of the overseers handed the lantern to the other. A woman named Ruth slowly approached her window. At first she saw nothing. Then she noticed something moving along the dirt road. A figure, walking slowly. Step, step, step. The moonlight revealed a shape covered in dirt, clothes torn, face pale. Ruth gasped. Her scream woke the entire row of cabins. "Someone's coming!" she cried. Other slaves rushed to their windows, and what they saw made their blood run cold. It was Samuel, the boy they buried. He walked slowly across the plantation yard. Dirt still clung to his hair and skin. His breathing sounded heavy but steady. Inside the main house, the commotion finally woke Caldwell. He stepped onto the porch holding a lantern. "What's going on out here?" he shouted. "Right now!" But the overseers didn't move. They were staring at the tunnel. Inside the collapsed earth, several skeletons were clearly visible. Human skeletons. Some still wrapped in fragments of old clothing, others half buried in the dirt. It was obvious these bodies had been hidden there for years. Caldwell stepped closer to the hole. "Did you hear me?" he barked. "Fill it in." But then something happened that shocked everyone even more. Samuel spoke again, quietly. "They're not finished talking." The slaves murmured nervously. Caldwell turned toward the boy with burning anger. "Enough of this!" he shouted. But even as he yelled, something strange was happening among the slaves. They were staring at the tunnel, whispering, because several of them recognized the clothing on the skeletons. One old slave man stepped forward slowly. His hands shook. "That coat," he whispered. "That's Elijah's coat." The man's voice cracked. "Elijah disappeared 5 years ago." Another woman leaned closer to the hole. Her eyes widened in horror. "That one, that's my brother." More voices began rising. "Those are slaves who vanished. They were killed. They were buried here." Fear began spreading across the plantation yard. Because the slaves suddenly understood the truth. Every time someone disappeared, Caldwell had hidden the bodies beneath the house. Caldwell realized what was happening, and for the first time in years he began to lose control. "Silence!" he roared. But no one listened. The whispers kept growing louder, and standing quietly in the center of it all was Samuel, still covered in dirt, still watching everything. The secret beneath the house. Within hours, word had spread beyond the plantation. Nearby farms heard the rumors first, then the small town a few miles away. People whispered about the strange discovery, a tunnel, hidden skeletons, and a slave boy who had somehow returned from his grave. By morning, several riders arrived at Caldwell Plantation. Among them were 2 county officials. They had heard enough disturbing stories to come investigate. Caldwell tried to maintain control. "This is all nonsense," he insisted. "Old bones. Probably from years before I bought this property." But the officials were not convinced. They examined the tunnel carefully. The deeper they looked, the worse the discovery became. More bones, more evidence of bodies buried deliberately. Some skeletons even showed signs of injury. broken skulls, shattered ribs. It became clear that these people had not died naturally. They had been murdered. The officials turned toward Caldwell. "How many people disappeared on this plantation?" one asked coldly. Caldwell said nothing. Behind them, the slaves stood silently, watching, waiting. And once again, Samuel stood quietly near the edge of the yard. One of the officials noticed him. "You," he said. "Boy." Samuel looked up. "Who found the tunnel?" Samuel pointed slowly toward the oak tree. "The ground showed it," he said. The official frowned. "What do you mean?" Samuel answered calmly. "It was time for the truth to come out." The officials exchanged uncertain glances. There was something unsettling about the boy's calm voice, but they could not deny what they had seen. Before the day ended, Caldwell was placed under arrest. Caldwell's trial came quickly. Witnesses testified. Overseers confessed. And the skeletons beneath the plantation told the rest of the story. Within months, Caldwell lost everything. His land, his reputation, his freedom. The plantation was shut down, and many of the slaves who had lived there were finally sent away to other places. But there was still one mystery no one could explain. Samuel, the boy who had predicted everything. The boy who had somehow survived being buried alive. No one knew exactly how he escaped the grave. Some believed the soil had been loose. Others claimed an animal might have dug through the dirt. But many slaves believed something else entirely. They believed Samuel had been protected by something unseen. Because every event he predicted had come true. The boy who disappeared. No sign of where he had gone. Just empty space where the boy had once stood. History is full of stories that were never meant to be told. Secrets buried beneath the ground. Voices silenced by time. But sometimes, the truth finds a way back. And here on Ashen Truths, we bring those forgotten stories back into the light. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Ashen Truths, and tell us in the comments, do you believe Samuel escaped on his own? Or was something darker protecting him? Stay curious, and remember, the darkest stories in history are often the ones no one wanted you to hear. Welcome to Ashen Truths.